Welcome to r/payback.
Have you ever felt so betrayed by someone you loved that you had no choice but to fight back, even if it meant tearing your family apart? That's exactly where I found myself. When my own father stole the money my mother left me, it shattered everything I believed about family and trust. I never imagined I'd be the person to take my own dad to court, but sometimes doing what's right isn't easy. So here I am asking Reddit. This story isn't just about money. It's about broken promises, complicated emotions, and the impossible decision to stand up against the one person who was supposed to protect me. I'm torn between anger and sadness, betrayal and love, and I don't know if I'm the villain or the victim in this story. I'm a 23-year-old woman, and this all started more than a decade ago when I was just a kid. My mom passed away from a sudden illness when I was 11. She was everything to me, kind, smart, fiercely protective. Before she died, she made sure I'd be taken care of. In her will, she left me a substantial inheritance, around $90,000. The money was meant to support my future, college, housing, maybe even a first car. She couldn't stay with me, so this was her way of protecting me after she was gone. My dad was named the trustee. At the time, that made sense. He was my legal guardian, and I still trusted him. After the funeral and all the legal documents were signed, things settled into something like normal. We lived quietly, just the two of us for a while, and I thought life might find a new rhythm. But looking back, I realize now that the trust my mom left behind didn't just disappear overnight. It faded slowly, hidden behind vague promises, silence, and a kind of parental authority that made it impossible to ask questions. I was a grieving kid, and he was the only parent I had left. So I believed him when he said not to worry. I believed him when he told me the money was safe. For a while, I didn't know I was being lied to. A few years after my mom passed, my dad remarried. At first, I thought maybe this new chapter could bring some stability. His new wife was kind, and she had 2 young kids of her own. Suddenly, I wasn't the only child in the house anymore. I had step-siblings. It was a big adjustment, and honestly, I felt a little invisible. I was growing up, trying to figure out who I was without my mom, but the attention seemed to shift away from me. At first, things seemed okay on the surface, but I started noticing little changes. My dad and his wife talked quietly in another room when I came near, and they stopped sharing details about the family's finances. I overheard vague comments about investing in the new business and putting money into something big. When I asked about the inheritance once, my dad brushed me off, saying it was all for the family. Now, I didn't understand what that meant exactly, but I felt the tension growing. It was like the money my mom left me had become a secret, a topic no one wanted to discuss. I didn't want to cause trouble. I just wanted to feel safe again, like my mom had intended when she left that money behind. But deep down, I began to suspect something wasn't right. When I turned 21, I was finally supposed to get full access to the inheritance. I was excited. Maybe I could use it to pay for college or save for a place of my own. But when I contacted the bank, I got the worst news I could imagine. The account was empty. My heart sank. I called my dad, hoping there was some mistake, some explanation. But his reaction wasn't what I expected. He sounded defensive and vague, saying things like, "We had to use it for the business," and "it was all for the family's benefit." When I pressed him, he told me to be patient, that the money would come back eventually. But I could hear the hesitation in his voice. I felt blindsided, betrayed, and confused all at once. The money my mom had saved for me, the money that was supposed to secure my future, it was gone. And no one seemed to think I had the right to be upset. I kept thinking about those quiet talks between him and his wife, about the business they'd started. Was that what the money was really for? I struggled with whether to confront him again or just accept it. But the more I thought about it, the angrier I got. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust, respect, and fairness. I knew I had to do something, even if it meant breaking my family apart. When I finally confronted my dad about the missing money, his response was a mix of justification and gaslighting. He told me that he had used the inheritance for the family. According to him, the money wasn't just mine. It was meant to help everyone, including his new wife and her kids. He said they had invested it in a bakery they opened together and bought a bigger home. He framed it as a noble decision, a sacrifice he made to keep the family afloat and build a future for all of us. But hearing him say this didn't make it easier to accept. I felt a deep sting of betrayal. That money wasn't just cash. It was my mom's legacy, meant specifically for me. I couldn't believe he would take it without asking or even telling me properly. It felt like he had erased my rights and feelings in one cruel swoop. Family members had mixed reactions when I told them. Some on my mom's side were outraged and supported me, but others, especially on my dad's side, urged me to think about the whole family and not cause a rift. They said I should just let it go for the sake of peace. I was drowning in grief and anger, but also confused by the divided loyalties around me. Deciding to sue my own father was the hardest thing I've ever faced. Every day I wrestled with my feelings. How do you take legal action against the person who raised you, the man who's supposed to protect you? Loyalty and love warred with the need for justice and fairness. But the more I thought about it, the clearer it became that staying silent wasn't an option. Financially, things were falling apart. I had planned to use the inheritance for college tuition and to get out on my own. Without that money, I had to drop out of school and take on part-time jobs just to keep afloat. The debt piled up, and I felt trapped. I kept wondering if pursuing this lawsuit would only tear the family apart even more, or if it was the only way to get my life back on track. I talked to relatives, friends, and even a lawyer to understand my options. Some relatives were supportive, telling me I deserved to be paid back, while others warned me about the emotional cost and the possibility of never reconciling with my dad. I felt isolated and scared, but I knew I couldn't let this go. The money wasn't just about the cash, it was about respect, honesty, and standing up for myself. It was a battle between protecting my future and risking everything I had left of my family. When I finally decided to hire a lawyer and file the lawsuit against my dad, it felt like the most difficult and important moment of my life. Sitting across from the attorney, I handed over all the documents I had collected: the will, bank statements, messages between my dad and me. My hands trembled, and my heart pounded with a mix of sadness, anxiety, and a strange sense of empowerment. I was suing my own father, but after years of feeling powerless, this was my chance to fight back. The news hit my dad like a thunderclap. His face went pale when I told him I had taken legal steps to reclaim what was mine. At first, he denied everything, saying I misunderstood how the money was used. Then, he shifted to anger, accusing me of betrayal and threatening to cut ties. Some family members rallied behind me, offering support and understanding, especially on my mother's side. Others, mostly on my dad's side, scolded me for dragging the family's private matters into the public eye and urged me to reconsider for the sake of his younger children. The emotional storm was overwhelming, but deep down I knew this was a fight I had to see through no matter what. The court battle was grueling. I attended every hearing, clutching my documents and evidence like lifelines. My dad's lawyer tried every tactic to delay the proceedings, claiming financial hardship, disputing the amount, and accusing me of being greedy. At times, it felt like he was trying to paint himself as the victim, a father unfairly attacked by his own daughter. But I had done my homework. I gathered bank statements, the original will, and witnessed testimonies from family members who knew what had happened. Piece by piece, the truth started to emerge in court. The judge listened carefully as I explained how the money was taken without my consent and how it was meant solely for me. One turning point came when a longtime family friend testified about the dad's secret business plans that had never been shared with me. It became clear that the money wasn't just invested for the family, but was used to support his new life at my expense. The tension in the courtroom was palpable, but finally, the judge ruled in my favor. My dad was ordered to repay the inheritance plus additional damages. It was a bittersweet victory, justice served, but at a great personal cost. By the end of the trial, the relationship with my dad was shattered beyond repair, but I had reclaimed what was rightfully mine. The fight had been long and painful, but necessary. The court ultimately ruled in my favor, confirming that the money my mom left me was indeed stolen and had to be returned. The decision came with heavy consequences for my dad. He was forced to sell the bakery he and his wife had started using that money. His wages were garnished for years to come, and eventually, he even had to give up the family home to repay the debt. Watching all of this unfold was painful, but I reminded myself it was justice. The financial fallout rippled through the family like a storm. Conversations became tense. The financial fallout rippled through the family like a storm. Conversations became tense, gatherings awkward or avoided altogether. Some relatives sided with me, understanding why I had to act. Others, especially on my dad's side, grew cold and distant. The bond I once shared with certain family members felt irreparably damaged. The anger, disappointment, and heartbreak were real on both sides. I saw the weight of regret in my dad's eyes, but also the bitterness for being exposed and losing control. Emotionally, the battle left scars. I struggled with guilt and loneliness, but also relief at standing up for myself. Dad's pain was visible, yet I couldn't forget that he had betrayed my trust. Neither of us came out unhurt. This wasn't just about money. It was about fractured family ties and the long road to healing, if that was even possible. Family reactions were mixed and often harsh. While my maternal relatives supported me wholeheartedly, the other side of the family wasn't so understanding. My dad's new wife and half-siblings were furious, seeing my lawsuit as a personal attack that threatened their stability and happiness. They accused me of being selfish, greedy, and tearing the family apart over money. I received guilt trips and thinly veiled insults during family gatherings and through private messages. Some relatives claimed I didn't care about the younger kids who would suffer from losing the bakery and financial support. Others simply stopped talking to me altogether, leaving me feeling isolated in a family I once thought I could count on. The stepmom painted me as the villain, convincing some relatives that I was motivated by bitterness rather than justice. Despite the backlash, I stayed firm, knowing that what I did was right for me and for protecting my mother's legacy. It was hard not to wonder if I was seen as cold or heartless, but the reality was that my father's actions forced my hand. The bitterness and blame made family events awkward, and some relationships might never fully recover. Yet, I found solace in the few who stood by me, reminding me that standing up for myself was worth the cost, even if it meant breaking some family ties along the way. Looking back, I often ask myself, did I go too far? Suing my own father felt like crossing a line that shouldn't be crossed, but I was left with little choice. When the money disappeared, I was still a kid, barely old enough to understand what had happened. I wasn't just fighting over cash. I was fighting to reclaim what was rightfully mine, what my mother had left me to secure my future. I trusted my dad to protect that, but instead, he took it for himself. I know people say family should come first, that blood ties should mean forgiveness and patience. But what about fairness? What about the betrayal that cuts deeper than any argument? Protecting myself sometimes means making difficult decisions. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I couldn't pretend nothing happened. If I had ignored the truth, I would have lost a part of myself along with the money. This was never about greed. It was about justice and closure. I deserved to be treated with respect, not sidelined and deceived. I grieved for the dad I thought I had, and mourned the family that used to be. The lawsuit was painful and exhausting, but it was also a declaration that I mattered. In the end, I'm proud I stood up for myself. I hope others understand that sometimes standing your ground means standing alone. I'm not heartless. I'm human, and I deserve that. All right, let's break this down. OP's story is a roller coaster of betrayal, heartbreak, and tough choices. Who's the villain here? Honestly, it's the dad. Taking your child's inheritance and then pretending it's for the family is a masterclass in gaslighting. Using the money meant for your kid's future to fund your new life? That's cold. OP's decision to sue was messy but understandable. Loyalty to family is important, but not when it comes at the cost of your well-being and future. Dad's defensiveness and the way he tried to dodge responsibility only made things worse. And the family's backlash? Classic "you're the selfish one" blame game, often used to protect the person in the wrong. Now for the ratings, OP gets a solid 4 out of 5 buttholes. Not perfect, because suing your dad is never easy or clean, but she stood up for herself when no one else would. Dad? 0 out of 5 buttholes. Using your kid's money and then acting like the victim? That's a hard no. The stepmom and half-siblings? They get a 2 out of 5 for siding with dad without really understanding the damage. In summary, this story is a tough reminder that family isn't always unconditional love. It can be complicated, painful, and sometimes you have to fight for yourself. Looking back, I stand firm in my decision to sue my dad. It wasn't easy, and the family fallout has been painful, but I needed to protect what was mine.
That wraps up today's episode of r/payback. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to subscribe for more epic stories.